Damon? That's a great question. Are you talking about how often the budget changes after you started, or in terms of like 30-second commercials, like what are the variables?
Pretty much in terms of when the project initially starts.
All right. So when the project initially starts, this is pretty much your budget. This is good and bad. So let's get into the good and bad of it, okay? Why is it good, you guys? Why don't we want the budget to change? Why would that ever be good for us? There's a lot of bad, but why would it be good? Like, why would I stand up here and say, sometimes it's good?
Because you know exactly how much you have.
You know how much you have, and if you run it really well, you can make a lot of money, which is what I try to do. So if I get a project in for 100, I'm going to call team left and say, guys, give me an estimate on this project. And Damon's like, yeah, we'll do it for 10K. I'm like, great, come on in. So they do it, they knock it out, and who makes the money? Well, they made money, they're happy. They're like, oh, we got a professional project to work on, and I'm really happy because I got 90,000 bucks in my pocket. Now, it's not clean like that. That's what we consider like gross profit, okay? Because I have to pay for the building. There's lots of other things I got to deal with. Is there a name Jasmine?
Yes.
Jasmine's still smiling, looking at Doug like, hey, I like that business model. How do we get a piece of that? This is the thing that you guys need to start to understand, that there's this layer between the making and the selling of it, okay? And there's this gap. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of, I'll get into it in a little bit, okay? If you guys want to know that, I'll jump right into that. So why is it bad now? That was the good reason. So you guys are like, yes, it's very good. And this is called fixed fee bidding or project based. I'm not bidding per hour, and it's not a time and materials thing. I'm just going to give you a lump sum. If I produce it for that, then I'm going to do well if I manage my project well. Now let's talk about the bad side. Now, assuming you guys haven't done a lot of professional projects, that's why you're here. I'm just going to tell you all the bad stuff. Okay, you guys ready? Here we go. And then you guys are going to, I'll like pass around some razor blades and everybody can just kill themselves afterwards, all right? So here we go. I know, it's horrible. Let's talk about it. Sometimes it means infinite changes. Sometimes it means when I like it, it's done. And especially when you work in the film industry, this is why so many VFX companies go out of business, because there's no clear and objective parameter for what done is. Basically, the director can keep changing it. If you don't like it, you don't work with them. And then there's only 6 studios for you to work with, so that's kind of it. It's kind of a horrible setup, okay? So when you think you're done, Damon's team is almost done, and they're about to deliver, we're a week away, and then they show it to somebody, and they're like, we want to change these 3 shots. Oh, what do you mean you want to change? No, we had approval from you guys, now you guys do this. And most likely, being that they're a multi-billion-dollar company and you're a startup, I wouldn't say startup, but you're kind of new, but what are your options? You're not going to go up against them. So you try to negotiate something. And depending on how well you run your project, how well you've got things documented along the way, can you go back and say, look, okay, that's an overage, a change order. And when you get an overage, then you give them an estimate for how much more it's going to cost to produce what it is that they asked for. Does that make sense? Now, some people run their company really tight. As soon as the client says, can we change that from blue to yellow, a producer's like, that's more money. Can we lengthen the shot by 10 frames? That's more money. And at certain times, that will wear that relationship down. Can you imagine, like every time you talk to me, I'm like, well, that's a little different. That's a little different. And I've had that experience because I've hired contractors before to work on the building. You know, and I say like, you know, originally we planned to put the door there, but I want it over there. They're like, well, that's a change order. I'm like, well, you had to put the door somewhere. We haven't done anything. Why would that? So we get into these kind of arguments. And after a while, I'm like, you know, I think you're just taking advantage of me. So I like to work with contractors that are really fair and to be very reasonable. Like they bid the job fairly, so certain things are included, and there's always a little bit of fudge factor, right? But let's say if I change the material from bare floors to carpeted, now I know that there's more money. I'm a reasonable business person. I know that that wasn't in the budget before. So then he or she says that'll be, you know, $200 a square foot, whatever it is. And you either can say yes or no or find something else. Now, the problem is, this is where you guys, I'm going to say something that's going to hurt you a little bit, and I preface it, okay? I don't like working with artists. I like working with business people. Artists are the worst clients for us to have. Now, there are exceptions. They're the worst clients because business people understand you're in business to be in business, that you need to make money, and that they're reasonable about their expectations, the budget, and the timeline, okay? Artists, on the other hand, sometimes I feel don't value their own time as much as you value yours, because the art of being creative is just like breathing. Change that, do this, it's all fine. It doesn't matter because they're not business people. That's why some of my best clients are business people, and they let us do the most creative things. Conversely, it's like it goes against your logic a little bit, right? That our best clients are business people, okay? They're very fair. When I come back and say, you know what, it wasn't bid out this way, it's not in the scope, we've done so much extra work, which I've given to you, but now we're like way beyond reason, let's work on something. And then we just negotiate, and it's fair. What are the exceptions? Sometimes our experiences have been, if you work with an artist like a musician, they're really cool. They're super easy to work with. They respect the creative process. So I'll give you an example. I was working with the Raveonettes on a music video, and we showed them a 3D, non-shaded, non-lit motion test. And it was like quite a bit of it, because we wanted to lock the animation down. You guys know what I'm talking about? A grayscale, like the camera marks, there's still funny things inside of it. It's like the viewport that's being rendered out. And the lead singer, Suna, he said to me, I love it. I'm like, great, this is good. So he's like, it's a little gray. Do you think we can add some color? I was like, oh my God, it's just a rough, don't worry. Colors, texture mapping, all that kind of stuff, it's happening. So that's it. And then Chris Martin was here, and he was checking out his music video. So he was like looking at the artist working, and somebody's working on a Wacom. Not the one that not a Cintiq, but just drawing with it. He walked by, he marveled over it. He's like, what is that magical device? And it was awesome because they appreciate the process. And I imagine if I went into the recording studio, that crazy mixing board, and somebody does something, I'm like, what is that? What kind of sorcery is this? Witchcraft, right? So I think there's a mutual respect. But I think commercial artists, people that are making animations, video advertising for a living, they grind, and they'll grind you. They go to work on Sunday. They expect you to as well. And that's where it gets really rough on us. Okay, so those are some of the cons. How do you prevent all this kind of stuff? That's like a business class for you guys in the business of creativity, but you have very defined scope of work. This is how many rounds, this is what it looks like, this will constitute a change order, this won't, and there's flexibility. And then you develop a reputation over time of being a very fair shop. I will give you a lot, but there are reasonable limits as to how far we go before it becomes crazy, okay? So some of you guys, when you're first starting out, unfortunately, you will do everything and do every single change for 10,000 bucks. Why? I don't know, but you will. I promise you, you will, okay? So I'm just letting you know, maybe you do that a little bit and then you get out of that phase as fast as possible. Is that cool? Okay, you guys clear so far? Scared or not scared? Not scared? Yeah, student loans, what's going on? Not good.